In the vast and formless void that existed before even chaos itself had learned its own name, when there was neither light nor darkness, but only the endless breathing silence that precedes the first heartbeat of creation, Gaia, the broad-bosomed earth, rose alone from the abyss, and feeling the ache of emptiness within her, lay with starry Uranus the sky, who covered her like a bronze dome every night. And from their nightly embrace were born first the 12 radiant Titans, tall and terrible and beautiful, Oceanus who girdled the world with his river, Coeus and Creus, Hyperion the sun-eyed, Iapetus the piercer, Thea and Rhea, Themis who kept the laws of heaven, Mnemosyne of the deathless memory, gold-crowned Phoebe, and lovely Tethys. Then came the 3 Cyclopes, Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, whose single eyes blazed like forges, and whose hands could hammer thunder. And finally the 3 Hecatoncheires, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyes, each with 50 heads and 100 arms that could tear mountains from their roots. But Uranus, gazing upon these monstrous sons, felt fear coil cold around his heart, for he saw that they might one day grow stronger than he, and so the moment each child was born he seized them and thrust them back into the hidden womb cavern of Gaia herself, forcing them down into the darkness so that earth screamed in endless labor pain, her sides heaving, her rivers running blood, her mountains splitting open, until at last she could bear the torment no longer, and from the hardest flint within her veins she forged a great jagged sickle with teeth like a shark's, and calling her Titan children around her in the deep night, she whispered that one of them must take the blade and castrate their father so that the oppression might end, and the elder Titans turned away in terror. But the youngest, crooked-counselling Cronus, smiled a cold smile and took the sickle in his hand, and when night fell and Uranus descended once more to lie with earth in love, Cronus leapt from the shadows, swung the sickle in a terrible silver arc, severed the sky god's genitals at the root, and flung them hissing into the wine-dark sea off Cyprus, where the foam boiled, and the goddess Aphrodite stepped forth naked and perfect from the blood and semen of the mutilated sky, and Uranus, shrieking in agony, withdrew forever above the horizon, his wound bleeding stars. And as he retreated he cursed his son with the words that would echo through eternity. As I am overthrown by my child, so shall you be overthrown by yours. And Cronus, now golden-throned king of gods and men, took his sister Rhea as queen, and ruled from the cloud-wrapped peak of Mount Olympus in the bright dawn of the world. But the curse clung to him like a shadow he could never outrun. And when Rhea bore him the first child, gentle Hestia the hearthkeeper, he snatched the infant from her breast and swallowed her whole. And when golden Demeter of the corn came next, and proud Hera, and dark-haired Hades, and great Poseidon, who makes the earth tremble, each in turn he opened his terrible jaws and gulped them down alive so that they tumbled, immortal and unkillable, tumbled screaming into the bronze prison of his belly where they lived in darkness, curled like unborn things, waiting for a deliverance that seemed impossible. And Rhea, wild with a mother's grief, fled weeping across the mountains of Thessaly and the islands of the Aegean, until the 6th time she felt life stir within her once more. And this time she would not let Cronus devour her child. So she went in secret to the ancient island of Crete, to the deep cave on Mount Ida, or the Dictaean cave, according to which shepherd you ask. And there, beneath the dripping stalactites, she gave birth to a son whose eyes already flashed with lightning, and she named him Zeus. And to save him, she wrapped a great stone in swaddling clothes and carried it to Cronus, saying, "Here is your newest child." And Cronus, without looking, opened his mouth and swallowed the stone, feeling it settle heavy in his gut beside his imprisoned children, while the real Zeus was given to the ash nymphs Adrastea and Ida, to the honeybee Melissa, to the she-goat Amalthea, whose milk was sweeter than nectar, and whose broken horn would one day become the cornucopia of plenty. And the armed youths called curetes stood guard around the cave mouth, clashing their bronze shields and shouting war cries whenever the baby cried, so that the sound would not carry to the sharp ears of Cronus far away on Othris. And there, hidden beneath the roots of the world, Zeus grew faster than any mortal child, drinking divine milk and wild honey, wrestling with mountain lions for sport, learning the speech of eagles, feeling the thunder gather in his chest like a storm behind his ribs. Until one day he stood taller than the tallest cypress, his shoulders broad as the hull of a 50-oared ship, his beard already curling like black smoke, and his mother Rhea appeared to him in the guise of a simple serving maid and placed in his hand a golden cup filled with honeyed wine laced with a secret herb that would make even a god vomit up the contents of his stomach. And Zeus took service as cupbearer in the shining halls of Cronus, moving silent as a shadow among the feasting Titans, pouring nectar into jeweled goblets while his heart beat with the rhythm of coming vengeance. And at the great banquet, when the ivy-crowned Titans drank deepest, he stepped forward and offered the fatal cup to his father, and Cronus, suspecting nothing, raised it to his lips and drank, and suddenly his belly convulsed like a ship in a hurricane. The golden throne room shook, the pillars cracked, and with a roar that shattered crystal and split the sky, he vomited forth first the great stone wrapped in swaddling clothes, which crashed to the marble floor with a sound like the end of the world, then Hestia still glowing with hearth fire, then Demeter, crowned with wheat, then proud Hera with storm-cloud eyes, then Hades black as midnight, then Poseidon dripping with brine and shaking his trident, all of them full-grown, immortal, armed, furious and free after their long imprisonment, and Zeus stepped forward, thunderbolt already crackling in his fist, forged for him in secret by the Cyclopes he had freed from Tartarus, and the 5 liberated siblings fell upon their liberator with tears and embraces, and in that moment the old order of the universe cracked like an eggshell beneath the foot of the new, and war came, the Titanomachy, the 10-year cataclysm that scarred the cosmos forever, for Cronus and his Titan brothers would not surrender their golden thrones without a fight, and they arrayed their vast hosts on the cloud-wrapped peaks of Othrys, while Zeus and his brothers and sisters planted their standard on the snow-crowned summit of Olympus. And the earth groaned beneath the marching of their feet, the rivers boiled, the sea rose in black walls, the sky split open with lightning and fire, and for 10 long years the battle raged without quarter or mercy. Mountains were torn up by the roots and hurled like pebbles, forests burned for 100 leagues, the sun hid its face in shame, the moon turned blood red, and still neither side could prevail, until at last Gaia, the ancient mother of all, weary of the endless war of her grandchildren and remembering her own torment under Uranus, rose from a fissure in the earth and whispered counsel to Zeus that he should descend into the deepest pit of Tartarus and release the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires, who had been imprisoned first by Uranus and then by Cronus himself. And Zeus, heeding the voice of earth, took torch and thunderbolt and descended through the bronze gates guarded by the dragon camp, slew the monster with a single bolt that lit the underworld like daylight, shattered the adamantine chains, and led forth his terrible uncles into the upper air, where the Cyclopes, Brontes, Steropes, and Arges set up their forge on Olympus and hammered out the weapons that would decide the fate of creation. For Zeus, the blazing thunderbolt that split the sky; for Poseidon, the trident that could raise tidal waves to drown continents; for Hades, the helmet of darkness that made him invisible even to gods; and for themselves they took up again the hammers that rang like the heartbeat of the world, while the Hecatoncheires, Cottus, Briareus, and Gaias flexed their 300 invincible hands and roared their willingness to fight. And when Zeus led this new and terrifying army back to Olympus, the very stars trembled in their courses, and then came the final battle, the day the heavens themselves seemed to burn, when Zeus stood on the highest peak and hurled thunderbolts like javelins of white fire that struck the Titans with the sound of 1,000 bronze shields shattering at once, when Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, and the seas rose in walls of black water that swept away entire legions of Titans, when Hades slipped unseen among the enemy ranks, reaping them like wheat with his dread 2-pronged sword, when the Cyclopes rained mountain-sized boulders from their mighty catapults so that the sky was dark with stone, and when the Hecatoncheires stood shoulder to shoulder on the ridge and hurled 300 rocks at every heartbeat so that the air became a solid storm of granite, and the Titans could neither advance nor retreat, but were crushed where they stood. And one by one the ancient powers fell. Atlas was forced to bear the sky on his shoulders forever. Hyperion was blinded by lightning until his sun eyes burst. Iapetus was buried beneath an avalanche of his own making. And Cronus himself, the harvest king, the devourer of children, the crooked one who had ruled the golden age, faced Zeus across a battlefield littered with the bodies of gods, and saw in his son's eyes the same merciless resolve he had once shown his own father. And Zeus raised the thunderbolt that had been forged from the very stuff of creation and struck Cronus down with a blast that split the heavens from horizon to horizon, bound him in chains that neither time nor strength could break, forged by Hephaestus at the new Olympian anvil, and together with his fallen brothers hurled him into the sunless abyss of Tartarus, where the Hecatoncheires took up eternal guard, their 100 hands ever ready to crush any Titan who dared raise his head again. And when the smoke cleared and the seas fell back into their ancient beds, and the sky shone clear and blue for the first time in a decade, Zeus stood victorious on the peak of Olympus with his brothers and sisters beside him, the thunderbolt still smoking in his hand. And he divided the cosmos by sacred lot, to himself the wide heavens and supreme rulership, to Poseidon the grey-eyed the seas and all that moves beneath them, to Hades dark-haired the misty underworld and the hidden wealth of the earth, while Hestia kept the ever-living hearth-flame, Demeter the golden corn that feeds mankind, and Hera, his proud queen, the sanctity of marriage and the vault of the sky itself, and together they built halls of gold and marble on the mountain that would never again bow to any older power. And Zeus, remembering the mother who had defied a tyrant to save him, raised Rhea to the highest honor, seated her at his right hand during feasts, decreed that every hearth-fire on earth should burn a portion of its flame to her gratitude, and caused temples to be built where women in labor could cry out to Rhea, the mother of gods, for strength. And from that day forward the bright, dangerous, passionate age of the Olympians began, born in blood and fire, and the unbreakable love of a mother who hid her child in a cave on Crete, so that one day he might grow strong enough to tear down the old world and build a new one on its ruins. And the scars of the Titanomachy still mark the face of the earth to this day, the jagged lightning-split peaks of Thessaly, the drowned coasts of the Aegean, where whole islands sank beneath the waves, the deep trench of Tartarus, where the old gods wail in adamantine chains, the very shape of the constellations twisted by the hurling of mountains, all eternal witnesses to the day Zeus overthrew Cronus and proved, once and for all, that even the mightiest throne can be broken by a child who remembers his mother's tears and carries her courage in his heart like a second thunderbolt.